Welcome to Soul Elevation, guiding your ascension to new heights. I'm your host, Kara Goodwin, and this episode is amazing, so hold on to your hats. Dr. Sharnael Wolverton Sehon shares such powerful experiences of miracles, and she has such a grounding, down-to-earth presence about her that it really helps to shift our perspective to miracles being a solid part of the human experience. Wait until you hear about the beings who shared very detailed scientific information with her about quantum physics. These are light beings, by the way, and her bilocation experiences, which she's never been able to explain. Dr. Sharnael Wolverton Sehon is a captivating multidisciplinary expert who seamlessly blends naturopathic medicine, spirituality, and quantum science to empower individuals on their journey to wholeness. As the founder of True TV and author of 5 groundbreaking books, including The Science of Miracles, Remembering the Frequency of Love, Dr. Sharnael offers a unique perspective on achieving optimal health and unlocking human potential. Her global influence spans over 51 countries. In fact, I think she said it's up to 53 in this episode, where she shares her transformative insights through speaking engagements, online classes, and social media platforms. She also has over 15,000 clients online, remote with her technology with long-distance biofeedback. So we'll dive into this in just a moment. But first, I want to let you know about LoveTuner. I had LoveTuner's founder Sigmar Berg on a recent episode where we talked about the magic of sound frequencies, specifically the love frequency of 528. LoveTuner gives you simple and immediate access to this frequency throughout your day. There are so many benefits, from utilizing the power of the breath, to being in the sound itself, to just taking a couple minutes pause. I've personally loved using it for infusing the frequency into different rooms and spaces. Use my link in the notes and code KARA for 10% off. That's KARA for 10% off LoveTuner. And now enjoy this episode. Well, welcome, Sharnael. I'm so excited to have you here today. Thanks for being on.
I am very, very happy to be with you today. This is going to be awesome. We're going to have a fun time.
We are. And we had an episode that we did a couple of months ago, and then just technology got crazy, but there was such a strong connection between us, or at least I felt. So I'm like really, really excited to have this redo.
Yes.
And get into the miracle flow with you and to convey this to all the listeners. I'm really, really excited about this discussion.
Me too. I need it for myself. It's always a good thing to talk about miracles, that's for sure.
Yes, absolutely. It is fun just to get into the flow of it, and even when we have exposure to it, and you have an amazing story of how miracles and the science of miracles have come into your life, but it is amazing how life can happen and we can just be in the 3D, like with the challenges and with the heartache. And, I had this, we met right before I had a huge life event that happened within my family. And, I was right back in the 3D world of like survival mode, really, and so it's so uplifting to be able to get into this space and like, it's almost like getting up on a bell tower or something. So we get this like 1,000-foot view or something, or hundreds of feet view of life, and pull back and be like, okay, what is happening here? It's not just this muck, So let's start by just having a brief overview of your background and how you became interested in the science of miracles.
Yes. So my background, actually, I was in ministry for years. I feel like I'm in ministry but just not in an organized religion type situation. And some people don't feel like healthcare is ministry, because people pay to see me and or whatever, but also I still think it's a service. And when I see my patients, I'm seeing their whole everything. I'm looking at energy, I'm looking at emotions, I'm looking at, of course, the body, the soul, trauma, the whole package, instead of just zeroing in on symptoms and masking symptoms. So to me, that is like a healing is a very high service for all of us who are in that realm. Um, I do conference speaking, and I have written books and, teach worldwide. I've traveled to 51 states. Countries. I'm going to 2 more this year, to Bali and Sri Lanka. When I travel, I'm not only doing teachings and conferences, but doing a lot of research on medical things, science things, frequency things, working with plants and aromatherapy, and finding the best opportunities to support people naturally in those things. But this all came about after me being in ministry with the church, and that not being my path now. And that's not like, I'm not anti-church or anything. It just is, I'm just in a different realm of, a different path. But in between, I guess it was like 2008, somewhere mid 2008, I was in a health opportunity or crisis, however you want to look at it, myself. This is before I became an MD. I was I had spent about 7 years in the Western medical field looking for answers, not getting any answers. They just kept giving me more drugs and more side effects, and kind of was in that circus of doctor to doctor and sitting in rooms and getting refills and getting referrals. And it was really a full-time job, to be honest. But between that and then going through a really difficult breakup with the father of my kids, and that led to me losing my job. And because I was on television at the time, I had a 3-year contract, and the contract was coming up. And because of the divorce, that was a little bit too much for them to take on a woman, let alone a divorced woman. So we, I was just in this really low time of, seeking and searching and trying to just figure out how to land in the middle of all of those things between, health and partnership and job mission, like what's the next step? How do I go? And I had been fasting a lot, praying a lot, doing meditations, and just really like feeling like, oh my gosh, I have to know, like, there's got to be more. And I walked out of my bedroom one morning and was walking into the living room, only to be caught off guard because I literally walked in and there were these two ginormous beings of light that looked almost like pillars. I mean, they were just huge, tall, iridescent, like pastel looking colored, um, beautiful, very terrifying beings. And I had this just slew of emotions, from anything from complete terrifying feelings to disbelief and wondering, like, am I dreaming? Is this real? Confusion, and then immediately I heard, don't be afraid, or it's okay, don't be afraid. And I kind of felt a tad bit better, not so much, but just it brought it down a little bit. And then I started feeling this love come through. And when I say come through, I literally felt it in my cells, like inside and coming out, to the point where like tears started coming down, because I call it love leaks, meaning I was just so full that I couldn't contain the love. Like, it was just oozing out, and I could feel it from them. And so it was quite interesting. And they had a lot of different things to show me and to explain. And there was no physical talking, it was all telepathic. And towards the end, part of the things is there were books everywhere, and they were showing me these records of, people's names, what they were sick from, how they got healed, what date they got healed, and what they what they were healed from. And it was just record after record in these books. And I remember thinking to myself, just thinking like that I wanted to be a part of that. And there was one that looked more like a female and one that looked more like a male. And the female looked at the male like, okay. And he kind of was like, okay. And then she looked at me very, very sternly and got extremely serious. Not like it wasn't serious, but it got worse. And basically pointed at me and said, tell them they're not truly living unless they're living true. And when she did that, I just felt this wave of energy and again got just swept with emotions. And I felt like vibrating from my inner to my outer, like a really high buzz and almost like a frequency upgrade is my language. I mean, I'm making stuff up. I don't know how to even explain it with words, but again, more emotions and just like not fear, but just like a sacred like purpose to it. And I knew there were so many layers to what she was saying that it wasn't just like, oh, don't forget, don't lie. It was more like I knew it was everything. I knew it was like who you hang out with, where you go grocery shopping, who you're married to, where do you live, where's your house, like how long are you going to live there, like what is your mission, like with every step, with every thought, with everything that we do 24 hours a day, 7 days a week to embody your highest timeline and your highest truth and what you are meant to do moment to moment to moment. Meaning one day you wake up and you normally go to work, but maybe you're just being told to stay home that day, or you're told to do something else, or you don't hang out with a friend anymore, or you go to this grocery store instead of that grocery store and you go at 2 o'clock exactly and you don't know why. And sometimes you know why and you find out once you get there, and sometimes you never know, and sometimes you find out much later, and then things make sense because you're like, oh, that's why I ended up doing that thing. But I learned during that time, I saw the chemistry of the body of what happens when we live true and what happens when we don't, and how this body of ours has this technology to support us and give us strength and immunity and hydration and the chemistry to back up living true, and how when we don't, then we marinate in these really toxic chemicals that basically cause the opposite. Dehydrate your body and your skin, gray your hair, suppress your immune system and cause your body to go weak, and just all of these things, cancel, clear, all of that, when we don't. And so that's why some people just look like they've really aged, because they're not actually living true. And that's why sometimes you see people and you're like, wow, she looks great, and they're more in their pocket of being okay with what they're doing and what they're supposed to be doing and following their heart. And one of the scriptures that I got from that, was seek ye first the kingdom, and then all these things will be added unto you. And this is my kingdom right here within, and this is my kingdom, my aura or my electronic belt, and everything within here sends a radiation out, but it also magnetizes back to me. And as we seek those things and listen to that GPS, that inner voice or that inner knowing, some people hear it, some people just know it or they feel it. When we listen to that and we pay attention to that, to me, it's like we're only given one job, and that one job is to follow our heart, and everything else falls in place when we actually follow our heart. And anything less than our highest will always contain self-sabotage. Anything that we truly do within our heart will always be sponsored. There will always be grace. We will be totally God-funded when we choose the highest. The resources come, the people come, whatever needs to happen comes in place when we truly follow that little voice. And to be honest, sometimes whatever we hear could be completely opposite of what anyone else is hearing, including people that really love us and want the best for us. And we'll be given that test to follow or not follow, because even ancient scripture says we will be tested by every word. And we test ourselves, meaning we'll create situations to come to us to see if we're really going to follow that or not. And sometimes we pass and sometimes we don't. And I was also taught like just how this technology works, how there's a torrid of this radiation and what the language is of the field, what the average field is, how far the field is for some people, and why it's further out and why it's shorter. They showed me about energetic purgatory and how we can get stuck and why we get stuck. I mean, there was just so many different things that I remember when they poofed away. I mean, literally after she said what she did, she closed the book and everybody was gone. And I was just standing there in my living room, shaking like a leaf and vibrating and crying.
And all of this insight came through in that one session.
Yes.
And how long was that session?
I honestly wish I had looked at a clock to know. I don't know. It seemed like forever.
I
But it
mean, it
also,
seems like a lifetime or lifetimes of worth of information. Just what you've shared in 10 minutes or however long it's been. It's like, wow, you could create a whole degree in some of these topics, you know? But anyway, I'm sorry to interrupt, but I was just like dying to know, how long did this last? So you were saying that when they closed the book and they
yeah, I
left,
literally had
that's where I
to
stopped you.
slowly walk over to the couch and sit down because I felt very weak in my knees, even like I was just trembling and couldn't speak for a bit. I immediately grabbed my notebook and just started writing down anything I could possibly remember, because a lot of the language I didn't even understand, as far as like echo waves and standing waves and, you know, just words that I now have looked up and I'm like, oh, okay, that makes sense. And um, just some quantum physics type things, which I had studied a little bit in high school about, physics, but not to the level that it was just dropped in me. Um, but I had taught a lot on dreams and visions, and in my mind, I actually thought I was in a dream. And I was still very confused if I was in a dream or if this was real. And so my first instinct was write everything down as soon as possible, because I thought if I wake up, this is going to be gone. And I know when I would teach about dreams and visions, I'd always say, if you wake up in the middle of the night and dream something, write it down, because by morning, sometimes it just dissipates. And in my mind, I'm like, well, if I'm still in the dream and I write it down and then I wake up and I write it down, that's double an anchor to really never forget this. Except for I never woke up. Unless we're still in a dream, we could be still in a dream and I just don't know it. But yeah, I just started writing the graphs. And again, I had to like look up, and I'm sure you've had this too, where you get like a word and you're like, what is that? Or a song will come on and you're humming it, and then you're like, oh, what are the lyrics to this song? And you look it up and it's like a message, that you didn't know those lyrics like 2 minutes ago. That actually happened to me last night. I kept humming this thing and I'm like, I look it up and it was like literally a message to me about the situation. And I was like, wow, that's weird. Um,
Wow.
but it's not, because we are all transmitters and we're all receivers and we can get this information, any one of us. I'm not any better than anyone. I just happen to be seeking. And Scriptures, I look at scripture as quantum physics, and it literally says, seek and you will find, knock on the door and the door will be answered. And the door always opens in. Like, we're the ones that have that control of remembering. It's all in here anyway. It's just a matter of it opening up to us and us being aware that we already had all the information. Um, so I did put everything in a book because I started talking about it publicly and telling people, and everyone kept saying, can you make a book out of it? Or can you send me a picture? And I had some pictures out here and there, and I finally was just like, I'm just going to put it all down. And the pictures aren't like super beautiful, nothing like this guy back here. Um, yeah,
Andre,
yeah,
yeah.
it's so
We had the
strange.
same picture
Like,
for we
look,
weren't
I
recording
literally
yet,
have
but
this on my
yeah.
phone, and this is with my Facebook cover, and she has it in her
Yes.
background. I'm like,
That's amazing. Yeah, so this is a guest that is, it's not released yet, but we've recorded Andre Balog, and so that's just, and he's got like almost 1,000 pieces of art, and I chose one for myself to have in the background here, and you chose one for your Facebook group, and we are only just now realizing this, but it just goes to show like all these patterns and these like synchronicities and how the universe is talking, and the connection that I felt to you the first time that we recorded, and it's just all getting re-emphasized, and even things you're saying right now, you had that the lyrics that were coming to you yesterday. I was humming this native, it was like an indigenous tune. It was how it felt like with me, and it just kept repeating and repeating, and I've never heard this song before, but I was just like not humming, what, I don't know what you call it. It's not like humming like but you're like toning it, I guess. And it was just this repeating thing going on in my head. And I was like, I'm just going to like, and it was just while I was making lunch or whatever. And I'm making it up. And then my cat starts staring at me. And I'm like, I don't know what I'm doing. Like, it's just in my head, but I don't know this song. But, and then but that's like my version of what that just happened to you yesterday with music, because I was like, okay, somehow this song that I don't know, that is not even like a pop song or anything that has there were no words. It was just this beat. But it felt like Native American to me. But and then the same, you're telling your version of that with the lyrics that were poignant for you. So
God
I don't know, I love
speaks
it.
in a lot of different ways, and if we are aware and we are watching and listening and remembering, then we get a lot more, like way more synchronicities when we're aware. I just spoke at the Conscious Life Expo in LA, and it was so surprising to me how many people would say, "Oh, are you psychic, or did you channel your book or whatever?" And I'm like, "We're channeling all the time. Like, everyone is psychic. Like, I don't I don't differentiate me from someone else or someone else from me on any of that. I mean, we channel every time we hear that voice to go drink water or call your mom, or, you know, go take something back to the store that you've remembered that you have to return before it's too late, or what. It's like that's all channeling. Like, everybody's channeling. So, I think it's funny when people think like they're somehow better if they channel, because it's like that's all within everybody's technology already. But it's okay, and it's fun,
Yeah.
and it's easy. And yeah, even me talking to you and us picking this day of all days, I needed to remember this conversation because of the things that are going on with me, just for my own security and my own mental and my own reminder that everything's going to be okay. I have support, and people are here, or beings are here, things are here to support me. So thank you.
Absolutely. Yeah. Well, bless you for everything going on with you right now. And it's such a joy and an honor to have this discussion. I I'd love to know, like, did you, because I remember this came up last time with these beings, these incredible beings. Did you ever see them again? And did you get any insight into like where they were
I
from
don't
and
know
your
where they're
connection to
from.
them?
My language at the time was angels. I had seen her, the girl, um, twice. Well, I saw her once at the end of my bed when she told me that I was pregnant. Um, and what's funny is she showed up at the end of my bed and basically said, "You're pregnant." I was pregnant with my third child at the time, and when I must have looked afraid because she immediately said in her mind, "It's okay. We're here to help." And I remember leaning over to my former partner at the time and saying, "Oh my God, she showed up again and she just said I'm pregnant." And he was like, "Oh God." And he kind of like freaked out a little bit. And then I was like, "No, they're here to help." And he was like, "Well, they better be, because but I went back to sleep and I kind of forgot about it. And the next day, my oldest daughter came home from school with a ripped out coloring book sheet that she had colored. And it was a picture of an angel pushing a stroller that had a baby in it. And she said, "Mom, you're pregnant." And she was like 4 years old. Or she was, no, she was 5 years old. And so I was like, wow, okay. And I remembered. And so she also came to me when I found out my second daughter was pregnant, but she wasn't there in form. It was, I heard her voice. And my oldest daughter has had different encounters since she was like 2 or 3. Because my former husband was, he kind of just thought this was all nuts. And that's fine because it is kind of nuts. And until it started happening to her. And like he literally had her at Walmart and he called me in a panic and said, "I'm not going to get shopping. I'm coming home right now. She's freaking out. She keeps talking about the Birdmen." And whoever she was seeing actually had wings. Mine that I saw did not have wings, or I don't recall them having wings. But she would constantly talk about the Birdmen and what she would, the first time that she came home, that he brought her home and she was screaming and crying and just panicked and terrified. I said, what did they say to you? What are they saying? And she said that they keep saying, "Shane, Shane," that's her name, "Shane, Shane, be my guide, be my guide." And scriptures will talk about that, and they'll say that these angels are literally on standby waiting to hear what we tell them to do, that they're here for our bidding. And some of them are super bored, to be honest, because we don't know, some people don't know that they're supposed to be, giving them jobs. Um, and some of them do their jobs without us, and some of them need us to tell them what to do and to guide them, which is interesting. Um, but that was a big wake up for me, and I had to even find that. And I was like, "Oh, wait a minute! It does say that, that they're here for our
Oh my
bidding."
gosh. I'm so happy that you just said that because I just thought of like 100 jobs for angels.
Ah,
I'm going to get to work soon.
yes, right. It was like, hey,
Yes.
they're on the payroll, except for they don't
Their payment is
charge.
different. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah. Well,
yes.
and I love to think of that too in terms of like the help that we have on the other side. They're wanting to grow too. Like they're going through their own evolution. And just like we get so much from helping each other, and just being there for our brothers and sisters helps us. We feel so good when we get to be part of a solution and we uplift people. So giving all beings, that's, rewarding for, where they get the chance to help resolve
Be a
something.
part of the story. Yeah, they get to be a part of the story.
Yeah.
And that's probably very fulfilling for them. And the reason why it's so fulfilling for us is because our limbic system, the way that we're made, we can't tell the difference between them and us, meaning anybody and us, whether they're angels or people. So when we give to someone, our body registers it as we gave to ourselves, and we have all the chemistry that comes down to feel like somebody just gave us something, and we feel really happy. And I know when I give things to people, I always feel like I could just fly home. I'm like, yay, I just feel so happy that I did that. And there is a chemistry involved with that. And but so can go the other way too. Judgment. When we judge other people, the body registers it as your you just judged yourself, and you have all the chemicals that saturate and depress and oppress, and all the things with aging us. And it's like a lie, because literally the truth will set you free. So when we are living true, again, there is a vibe, a radiation that goes out, but also provides a match and a magnet back to us. But when we're not living true, which would include judging someone, that's not being very true. That's not true to ourselves, and not true to the world and or the consciousness on the planet. That puts another vibe out, which we will get a mirror back. We'll get immediate judgment. And things are speeding up really fast. Things are happening way faster, with specificity and with feeling. There's a lot of feeling on the planet, and that's the quickest way to get a, a feedback, is to use all of your feeling with specificity, and use your desires to actually create and manifest something. And so judgments are really happening fast. Everything is just speeding up so much. So we have to be really, really, really careful. Or we don't have to, but we get to be very, very careful.
Right. I love that. And we coming back to like the geometry. So if you're just listening and you didn't have the video, you may want to check in the video when we were talking about the visual aspect and the artist Andre that we were talking about. But for me, when I think about like the truth and the alignment, that all of those things that you're talking about, there's a geometric element to it as well, in terms of like patterns. And so when we see the perfect symmetry in like sacred geometry, and we see how there are these different reference points that are repeated and in perfection, and that is reflected in synchronicity that appears in our lives. When we see these patterns, when we're seeing these reflections, and it's like, oh, I see it in a song, or I hear it in a song, but I'm also seeing it in scripture. I overheard a conversation that reinforced it. And I randomly tuned into a podcast and they were talking about it. And all of these ways where it's like there's one thing, there's one, let's say, message, there's one truth that's being delivered, and it's showing up in all of these different ways. And there is like a geometry with it, because it's like these repeated patterns. And your book, The Science of Miracles, Remembering the Frequency of Love, you were saying that because you have this gorgeous cover in there, it's got the Merkaba in it, which is a geometric
Flower of life. Yeah.
Oh, right. So you've got like the star tetrahedron and the flower of life and all of this geometry, and that's why you were drawn to this symbol that is just still, it's going to take me a long time to be able to like fathom that we both chose out of almost 1,000 different patterns of Andres, and you didn't even know that was the
I didn't even
artist.
know he had 1,000. Yeah, I didn't even know who he was.
Right.
Somebody sent it to me because they said, this looks like your book. And
Yes.
I've had it saved since November 7th,
Yeah.
2019.
Right. I mean, and I just happen to have this in the background, and it's just like, wow. I think I probably picked it right about the time that you and I first met too. I probably had more of a flower of life thing behind me the last time we were together.
Yes. So
Oh,
I
which
never
you,
take this off.
oh wow,
Yeah.
which you have a necklace
Yeah.
of right now.
So to me, we are the collective, like, flower of life.
Hmm.
And then we're in the middle of all this. And then the Merkaba is our spaceship. It's our field,
Hmm.
and both of those things, the reason why this is on here is because all of us walk in this every single day. We do, everywhere we go, maybe people don't see it, but it's still there. And some people have a really, really big, huge one, and some people don't. But
And is that part
no,
of your work? Do you see the energy of people, or can you tap into that as part of your work?
I have seen that.
Mm-hmm.
I have seen that since really little. Since about 6 years old, I had an encounter with Jesus, who I didn't know it was Jesus at the time. But after that, my vision changed. And then also, there were a couple other things. There was a man that actually prayed for me, and some things happened, and it was almost like a near death experience, or at least like it's my story of what happened to me during that event was sounds very similar to what I've heard people say when they've had near death experiences, when like going through a hole and then they're in space and
Wow.
blah 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 blah. And when I came out of that, I started seeing even more, and I actually went and got my eyes tested because my mother is blind and her mother is blind, and my aunt is blind, and my mother's siblings were blind. So there was
Wow.
like a genetic thing. And I thought, oh God, something, I started seeing colors and symbols, and I was like, oh God, is this how it started? And asked them about that, and they were just like, no. So I went and got my eyes tested, and I found out that I had 10/10 vision instead of 20/20 vision. I had like better vision than the 20/20. So I don't know what it is now. I'm wearing glasses to read now, but that was in my 20s when I had the 10/10 vision, and I can still see far away really, really, really well. But anything this close, I still have my glasses on, so
Yeah.
it's I'm ready for a healing. I'll take the 10/10 back.
There you go. I'm sure it's coming. And so, what is that like for you? So you said that that happened when you were a child. Have you, since that time, you've been able to visually see the energy bodies of sentient life?
Yeah, it's not all the time,
Mm-hmm.
and it's not anything I have figured out how to control.
Okay.
So that's annoying. Because there's sometimes when I'm like, hey, that would be cool to see. And then there's other times that I'm like, please turn it off.
Yeah.
I do get very overwhelmed in big crowds and um, like going to malls and things like that. I usually don't typically enjoy that. It's a little bit overstimulating sometimes, but um, and then there's other times that it doesn't bother me at all, and I don't even see anything. And I choose to know what makes it happen and what doesn't, or why sometimes I can see things or feel things. I think sometimes it's turned off for me to use different muscles spiritually, of maybe like feeling it instead, or or just knowing it instead of having to rely on the sight,
Mm-hmm.
and having faith to know and the discernment to know. But there's all different giftings, and we all have them all. It's just a matter of like testing them out and using them and developing them. And some people don't have to develop anything; they're just born that way. I've talked to kids who literally saw dead people. I mean, this girl, Victoria, was 6 years old, and she had a near death experience, fell off a ladder. And when she came back, she could literally see little kids her age that had passed in car accidents or different things, and older adults. And to the point where we would Google these names, and she would tell us the street, the car
Wow.
that they got in an accident, like very specific things. And we would look and we could find that she was not making this up. Like there's no way for her to know any of this stuff. And she actually saw two of my children that passed and knew their names and what they looked like. And
Wow.
I had never given her any names. Talk about building faith.
Wow.
So there's some people that just, for whatever reason, have a different frequency or a gifting package that they're aware of. But I do believe all of us have the opportunity for every bit of it and more, because scriptures do say greater things than these, meaning Jesus did some pretty cool stuff. And I keep referring to Jesus. He's one of my teachers, and we are supposed to be doing, pretty crazy, awesome miracles every day, all the time. That should just be normal.
Right. Yeah. Um, well, tell us about the science of miracles and what you go into in your book.
Yeah, I mean, it kind of goes into the field. It goes into the technology of being able to receive as receivers and also transmit, transmute, um, being able to know and tap into that knowing, and then creating how to manifest. You know, when we're in that alignment with what we're thinking, what we're talking about, what we're feeling, especially what we're feeling. That's the biggest magnet. And then there's also the subconscious radiation. There's the DNA of our ancestors radiation. The organs all have radiation. You know, bones are all electronic and have their own. Our teeth actually have radiation. Like everything is electronic, and so there is a radiation out, but then there's also this magnet that comes back, and it has this torrid, like I talked about earlier. And, you know, if we can get this into alignment with desire, we can create faster. But a lot of times, maybe we are thinking about something positive and we're talking about something positive, but maybe the heart has doubt or fear, then that's going to subtract from the equations. And we'll get this like 2 step forward, 1 step back kind of thing. And, or sometimes we just are at a standstill with like energetic purgatory. So I teach on how to get out of that, how to frequency hop, I call it, how to shift to different timelines. I go into bilocation, which I have done that, but not on purpose.
Really? Can you tell us about that?
Oh my gosh. So I was in Montana and I came home from Montana, and about a week later, this is back when answering machines were the thing, and I didn't have a cell phone. But someone had kept calling my office and saying, you know, hey, we need to finish that conversation. Don't forget, please call me. This is my number. Um, And like the third or fourth time, my daughter was like, you know, are you going to call that lady back? She keeps calling and I don't think she's going to give up. And I was like, I was going to call her, but she keeps saying that I was in Tennessee and that she met me and all this stuff. And I think she's calling the wrong number. I don't think, because I wasn't in Tennessee during that time. I was in Montana during that time. And I don't want to embarrass her and be like, hey, wrong number. So I kind of thought she would give up and just like realize like this isn't who she's trying to talk to. But she just was very adamant. And so I finally called her and I'm like, hey, you know, I just want to let you know I did get your messages. I wasn't blowing you off, but I think you have the wrong number. And then she was like, well, is this Dr. Sharnael? And I was like, yes. And she's like, are you a naturopath? And I'm like, yes. And she was like, yeah, we had a conversation. You came up whenever we were at that conference in Tennessee. And you said that you could help me with my daughter and da 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 da. And then they whisked you away and you went off with, you know, and she named a friend of mine who I know was at that place. And she said, you know, you were there with Ian Clayton. And I was like, I know who Ian Clayton is, but I wasn't with him. I was actually in Montana during that time. And she just kept saying, you know, you gave me this business card. You wrote down your land number. You know, you said you didn't give it out. It was a private number. I was just like, I kept trying to argue with her.
Wow.
And what's funny is right before this happened, I was like doodling and I had written out LOVE. And I was trying to make like, what is it? Is it an
Like
acronym? Is
an
that what it's called?
anagram?
Anagram. Yes. So I had put L for love. I put O and it was blank. I had V vibration and E energy. And I was in a group. I guess I was on a cell phone, but it wasn't like a smartphone.
Mm-hmm.
And because I had texted someone and said, hey, what can I do for O? Or it might have been an email. I choose to remember. But anyway, I had asked my friends, what can I do for O? And people were saying, put oils, put this, put that. And I'm still talking to her and I'm trying to tell her like she's wrong, wrong. And then all of a sudden I hear omnipresent. And I was like, holy crap, I was there. And so I just surrendered to that for a minute and I said, you know what? I'm so sorry. You're right. That was me. Because she even got to the point where I was like, well, what did she look like? I said to her, what did she look like? She's like, she looked like you because she was you. And she was like, do you have long blonde hair? You have this so tall, blah, blah, blah. And she actually still had a business card, which she showed me later. And my handwriting was just terrible with the phone number that I had written on there. And I was just like, this is insane. And so I don't know how I did it, but I was literally in Montana with lots of witnesses. Somehow she saw me. Now, I called that guy, Ian Clayton, who I knew, and I said, did you see me at the conference anywhere? And he did not. He had no memory of it. And I was like, I don't know what to do. All I know is, okay, lady, what's going on with your daughter? What can I do to help? And I was able to help her, and she got better and she was healed. So if all of that was just for me to help this young girl and get her life back, on track, then sure, I'll take omnipresence. Now, it's happened again with a thing with Europe where I wasn't there and people said I was there. And so I don't know how this is happening. And I gave up trying to figure it out. I'm just kind of like, it is what it is. And maybe it's just another level of multitasking.
Wow. Well, I mean, you're in the field of miracles, so everything is an option. Wow. Well, thank you for sharing that. That's amazing. And throughout, while we've been having this discussion, I mean, I know you're a naturopath. You just mentioned oils. This orange bergamot keeps coming up, and I am like, and I can edit this out if it means nothing to you, but I feel like it came up last week, and in some, like, I was watching something. I remember somebody saying something about orange bergamot and Italy. And I lived in Italy for a few years, so maybe that caught my attention. But then a few nights later, it was part of my dream. And I woke up and I wrote down orange bergamot, and I couldn't remember if that was even a thing. I was like, I remember orange something with Italy from last week, and I still can't put my finger on what it was that I watched, where it came up, or who said it, or whatever. I kind of dance around it where I'm like, it was like this thing, but it wasn't that thing.
I'm going to Google it. Did you Google orange bergamot? I
Yeah,
know there's bergamot.
it
Do
is.
you know what bergamot is for?
No, I,
Bergamot is for emotional healing.
okay.
Orange bergamot is, it is a thing.
I did Google it the next day just to see, like, is it even a thing and is it tied to Italy? And that, like, whatever came up right away was like, it's a thing and it's, native to Italy or something. So I was like, okay, well,
That's really, well, I know it's a big, big thing for emotions, clearing emotions and hormones.
okay.
Um, there's flavonoids in it, which help with cortisol levels that are natural blockers for cortisol. So people who have PTSD or any kind of trauma that they're needing to clear, a lot of people, maybe I'm supposed to use it. You're wearing orange,
Oh, yeah.
maybe it's a message for me to get bergamot out for whatever I'm doing. I don't,
Maybe, maybe
I'll say,
maybe it's going to come into play for me too. I don't know, but it's come up like a few times, and I was like, all right, I'll just see if this goes anywhere if I bring it up. But anyway, wow, I have loved every second of this, and I can't believe that we're already at an hour.
I know.
This has just been great. And you're going to be in the summit. You're going to be in the Reaching Through the Veils Summit, which is April 2nd. So people can look forward to having your energy, your vibrance, your wisdom in that event. I'm so honored that you're going to join us for that. How can people connect with you and find out more?
Yes, I am very much looking forward to that summit as well, and just being with some great leaders. I hope all of you guys will join us on that because it's going to be life changing. I'm telling you. You can find me at drsharnael.com. I have my books there. I actually just uploaded a class on how to clear grief and trauma out of the body. That was one of the things that I got out of the book thing. So if you go to drsharnael.com, there should be a pop-up if it's working right where it says like, hey, do you want to have this class? You give me in your email. It's going to automatically send that to you. There's a lot of other free resources there. You can get on my newsletter. Um, I have a podcast that I do once a week, and sometimes twice, every Thursday at noon, usually, and we talk about all the fun paranormal, angels, energy things, similar to what you guys do here. And if you're interested in working with me, I love working with people one on one, doing outcome mapping, which will get you right into your miracle moments pretty quickly. I can usually listen and or see what's going on in 3 to 4 minutes, and we can clear whatever needs to clear and get you to where you are required to be for whatever season you're in, whether it's partnership, finances, health, abundance. I work in all of those areas and more. Um, yeah, and I have a bunch of workshops available on the website if you can't make it to my real life in person workshops, which I'm going to be in New York and Florida again, and Vegas and Los Angeles and a few other different places that I'm going to be. You just go to my social media and you'll find like my schedule of events and things. So
Beautiful.
I look forward to working with you guys and look forward to the summit and just appreciate you so much.
Awesome. Thank you. I've loved this. Thank you so much. Thank you for all the work that you're doing and all of the miracles that you're sharing. And it's just been delightful to connect with you. Thanks, Dr. Sharnael.
Awesome. Talk soon. Bye.
Thank you for listening to this episode of Soul Elevation. Please take a moment to think about someone in your life who might be uplifted or have their curiosity sparked by this content and send it on to them. Let's keep sharing high-frequency, empowering content to reinforce the highest potential for humanity. I also invite you to subscribe to this content. Thank you for your support, and I'll see you for the next episode of Soul Elevation.